Hi, this is Grace Chanpong from the People team at Guidewire Software. Welcome to this episode on reboarding and our discussion about how we want to work together going forward. Let's hear from two of our leaders, Sinéad Condon, our Global Head of People, and Brandi Riggins, our Global Head of DEI and Culture, about how culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion factor in.
Hey, Brandi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for jumping on with me today. I am very excited to have this conversation with you. What we're going to talk about is reboarding in the context of DEI and culture, which of course you can't have reboarding without both of those two dimensions. And so before we get into it, just to set some context, if it's okay with you, I just want to tell the listeners or share with the listeners kind of the context of where we got to this point and what does reboarding even mean, right? And how are we even talking about it today? So let me just start by saying that, and then kind of you and I can get into it. Reboarding is a term, it's been around actually for a really, really long time, Brandi, and I hadn't really thought about it or heard about it until kind of halfway through the pandemic. Was reboarding something that you were familiar with? Onboarding, no, but reboarding I wasn't really.
No, I actually wasn't, Sinead. And if I could just say for a moment, for me, as you and I began to talk, I think I, like everyone else, said, oh, this is about how I acclimate myself and get my mind right to come back in the office. But I now realize it's more so about a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
It's about change. It's about what does tomorrow look like now that we've been almost 2 years within mask, and how do we reacclimate our mindset to our new normal? So for me, this has been completely eye-opening, and I'm excited about it.
You know, I just had a visual as you were saying that, because there's almost like an imagery, like we've been wearing these masks and now we're going to take these masks off, and what's behind the mask? Like we're different people, and kind of standing into that acknowledgement and recognizing that all of us are taking, at different points, mind you, taking our masks off. And it's not going to be the same for everybody.
No.
I just got chills even just thinking about that.
Yeah.
So I think we're all familiar with onboarding, right? We've all been onboarded, and you know, onboarding into an organization where you're learning to navigate the organization, building relationships. How are you going to work with your team? The kind of the dynamics of that, we're all familiar with. Much harder for those that are in the COVID cohort, as we've been calling it, right? That's the language we've been using. Probably terrible for really, we probably have to rename that at some point. But what we've been calling the COVID cohort are obviously those of our community in Guidewire that have joined since March of last year, which is really when the pandemic hit. And recognizing that where many of us prior to the pandemic joined, are you a COVID cohort?
I am a proud member of the COVID cohort.
A proud member of the COVID cohort. Yes, absolutely. And so you joined Guidewire during the pandemic and been getting to know your colleagues in this hybrid model. But, you know, not to say, you know, one of the things we talked about the other day was it's one thing to be remote as your designation, if you will. It's very different to be remote in a pandemic. Do you feel that?
Yes and no. I do feel a sense of inclusiveness because we're all on the same playing field, right? We're all here.
Yes.
And no one's in the office. So I feel like I don't feel any different than anyone else. And it's funny, I'll have conversations with people and I'll say, oh, as we transition, and they'll say, well, I've never been to the office before either. And it just shocks me, because in my mind, Sinead, I had to get over the fact of the COVID cohort is actually real. I think there's 20% of us, and it's going to be more impactful than we actually know. Now, what I will say is that I am actually looking forward to journeying into Guidewire, because I want to understand the culture that's already been established, but I also understand the need for us to reshape and refine the culture that we have, because there's people like me who are proud members of the cohort who don't necessarily know what it feels like. This is our culture. This is new for us.
Right.
So that I hope I answered that question, but that's sort of how I feel.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And we're all coming, and I think back to kind of what is the definition of reboarding. And for me, it is first of all, the recognition that our context has shifted, or we have our own context, we have our own experiences coming through the pandemic, and we've learned a lot, we've grown a lot. We have, become more resilient, or as somebody pointed out to me yesterday, or not, which is also okay, right? We've all learned a lot about ourselves in that. And here we have the opportunity coming out of the pandemic to recalibrate what that context has been for us and how we want to be with it as we come back into a post-pandemic world. Not necessarily to say we're physically going into an office, but when we take that mask off, right? The kind of symbolism of that I love, what's that going to be like? And one of the things that you said, which really resonates with me, is, and I've heard this a few times, this level playing field that everybody talks about. What does that mean to you when you say level playing field? What are you talking about?
I mean that we all have a way to be equal in how we're seen. The ideals that we produce, there's no thought process of, well, I'm in person and I can show this ideal a little bit differently. I have this makeup of my team where we can go and have coffee, but we're all having coffee, but we're having it, in our rooms. So that's what I mean about level playing field. And I do want to take a moment and say, Sinead, out of this, one of the things that I really, really will hope to happen, which I think that it will, because this is our chance to get it right and to build what we really want to see, is I want to create this organic mindfulness with our teams and everyone at Guidewire, so that they keep that in mind. How do I make the person at home feel as if they're here with me today? Like, they don't even have to think about it. They just do it. So we sort of keep the same atmosphere, but we're just in different locations. It just may be that you are in your home. I may be in the office, and somebody else might be outside taking a walk while they're having a meeting. I still want that to be able to exist, and I think that it will, but I just want it to be organic mindfulness, to be inclusive. That's what I mean.
That makes a lot of sense. And what I think about in that is, because everything that you're saying is led with intentionality, right? You have to be intentional about it. And I think when we were talking, we're like putting that subtitle on reboarding of designing your team with intentionality. It is to pause for a moment, right? To take the opportunity to pause for a moment to say, what is my team makeup? Who is remote? Who's with me? Where am I in all of this? Am I remote and my team is in an office, or some of them are in an office and some of them are not? And how do I then, knowing the makeup of my team, and not just the geographical location, but also where are they in terms of the context of the pandemic that we just talked about, right? And being intentional about how people have grown and, what now they bring to the table as a collective, and being deliberate about that, and bringing it that step further to say it may not be the same as it was before the pandemic, and just even questioning that and saying, what is the opportunity for us now? And one of the things that I love about the kind of the tagline we've been using about reboarding is, we have the rare opportunity to make a first impression.
Yes.
Right. And we never get that, right? So that to me is, the rare second chance to make a first impression is such a powerful thing. And I don't want us to waste that.
Can I expound on something that you said?
Yeah.
About team makeup and our second chance to get it right. And one of the things that I am mindful about and I'm excited about, Sinead, is that I think this is really an opportunity for us. We're going to look different. Like you said, like our team design, what does it look like? So let me explain. So now that we are in a model in which some of us are going to be hybrid, and we are moving to a space where everyone's not based in California. I'm actually sitting in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are a global company. Now we're going to see managers who have more people. You might have someone from your team who's not necessarily in an international hub, but they may be in Bali or something. You may have someone on your team who necessarily may have not have applied before, who may have diverse abilities and is more comfortable sitting in their home because they're in a wheelchair. They don't have to go into an office. And now they know us being an inclusive employer, and we have that option. They may say, hey, this is a company that I want to work for. And then the other thing is that we're now open to the demographic of the entire world. So again, not necessarily hub locations. We can now recruit in other places that may have a different demographic makeup in which we've recruited before. And of course, we would hire the best qualified candidate, but it's just an opportunity for us to have a more inclusive workforce. But we really want to make sure that they feel included, right? Because that's one of the things we're talking about, and welcome once they actually get here. So that's one of the things that I think I'm looking forward to the most.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you talk about, and for those that may not know either of us, you are the global head of diversity, mm-hmm. equity and inclusion and culture in Guidewire. Where does culture fit into DEI? Are they two different things?
I don't think so. I think culture overlays everything that we do in diversity, in equity, and inclusion. I think it's an overlay. Culture is like, it's how we feel, like how we do. It's like the how, like, what does it feel like? And it's not something you can put into words. You can go on Glassdoor and you can read the comments and you can try to discern what the culture is going to be. And I tried to do that, for the record, but it wasn't until like I spoke to people who worked here, like such as yourself, such as Mike, such as some of my peers, that I was able to sort of feel that. So that's what culture is. It's not something that you can read, is what you feel, is what we actually embody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when I think about team design, and obviously we're in the context of reboarding, we think about team design. I'm almost taking a step back and saying, what kind of an organization do I want to have? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? What is the type of makeup of my team and the environment as a whole? But if I think about my team, what's the makeup of that team that I want? Should I be intentional as I design my team? Should I be intentional about DEI as a dimension? Like when I'm designing my team,
yes.
Right? Or
yes.
And the reason that I say that, just to kind of pile on a little bit on that, I often think that DEI is an afterthought. Like people are not necessarily anticipating for how do I design for diversity and inclusion. Mm-hmm. But now looking at I've already done it. I already have my team. And so now I have to check a box. So what I'm kind of suggesting in this is this idea of proactively anticipating the most wonderful scenario of a design.
Yes.
That would include that dimension. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And so let me say this. I feel like, and I'm speaking for myself, I feel like you have to design for diversity of thought. And I feel like if you design for this diversity of thought, everything else will come. And let me explain what I mean by that. So if I have a team and I have my team already made up, I want to bring in a different viewpoint. I want to bring in different life experience, different industries, different ways of working. I want to think about those things, and I want to go out and do something different. And so I don't think it's about necessarily going out and looking for diversity. It's about going out and thinking about is this diversity of thought? I have tenured people. Maybe I get someone new. I have newer people. Maybe I need to go horizontally and get someone else from a different thought process. Maybe I need to go out and get someone from a different industry. And oh, by the way, everybody seems to be US based. We don't have any global representation on this team. As I'm a UX designer, and I am designing for customers, wouldn't it be awesome to have someone on my team who maybe has diverse abilities because they know that skill set and they know what our customers will actually resonate to?
Right.
You know, so those are some of the things that I think about, diversity of thought. And then I even think about like me, you took a chance on me. I came from banking. So I've worked in technology, but I know the work, I know diversity. Diversity is something that translates in every industry, but it's diversity of thought. I am the only one in Charlotte. There are several of us Guidewires, teammates who are in North Carolina, but all these things, just taking race out of it. If you never saw me, all those things that I just told you, like to me, that's diversity of thought, because I bring a different lens to what we're actually trying to do. So it wasn't about what I looked like, it's about the experience that I bring, and it's different than the makeup on the team. And as I went through all of those things, when I think about it, I'm the only one on the team who's in North Carolina, and the only one who I think came from banking. And some of us have done diversity, but I have a lot of the boxes that the team doesn't. And so I think of me and how I was actually sourced and what you look for in me. And I think if everyone follows that, and I'm not giving a plug just because you're my boss for the record, but I think that's sort of how you do it, right? I think that's how you do
it. Yes. When I think about the types of teams that I like to design, there's a huge part in the process for me that is surrounding myself with just different viewpoints, different experiences, different ways of looking at the world. I'm a practitioner of something called spiral dynamics, which is this human systems evolution stuff. And in spiral dynamics, we talk about worldview a lot, right? And worldview being both individual and collective. In other words, you have a worldview and I have a worldview, and those worldviews will be different just because we have different backgrounds and we had different experiences growing up. And so I really believe a powerful intentional team is for, whomever is designing it. In our case, it was me, seeking out those different worldviews. The power in that is also that as we recognize those different worldviews, that the collective power of the team is that we can, with those different worldviews, meld together with that diversity of thought and come together to co-create a worldview that is representative of our team, right? So it's kind of two dimensions to that. There's our own individual worldviews, and then how do we very deliberately then, rise that up into the collective power of what that worldview is. But that's team design, right? That is the intentionality behind that.
Yep.
So we're coming to a close on this brief conversation, which I hope we continue to have. And so I guess my last comment or question for you, Brandi, is if our listeners could have one thing in their back pocket leaving this conversation, and hopefully they will continue the conversation themselves. But we started this conversation with reboarding using the dimensions of DEI and culture. What's the one thing you'd really want someone to take away when thinking about team design with those dimensions?
I definitely think, as I stated, diversity of thought is important in everything you do. And just always think about like the mindfulness of inclusivity as you do anything related to Guidewire. Like you said, Sinead, this is our second chance to get it right. This is our opportunity to design the most innovative, robust place. And it all hinges upon the hiring managers, really. And even our teammates at Guidewire, like we can create the culture of what we want it to be, but we just have to have mindfulness of everyone that's here and just keep diversity of thought in our back pockets.
Love it. Love it. What a great way to end this conversation. Thank you for indulging with me
Yes.
early in the morning. And we'll leave it there. Thanks to all of you that are listening. And we hope to talk to you all soon.
Thank you.